Hi, this is Ryan from xcannabis.com, and the Springville Police Department in Springville, Utah recently put a video on their website to combat drugs, is the message. And they list a bunch of these problems they have. They list heroin and stuff, but they don't mention anything about the real problems in Utah. And this is discouraging because they spent a lot of time and a lot of money on this video. You can just tell. And, I'm going to be playing it alongside of this video here so you can see what I'm talking about. They are, they're talking, all this drug warrior stuff. They're talking about fighting this drug war still. Let's fight the illegal drugs, and all this drug stuff is coming into our communities, and we need more citizen action and all that. And I'm not discouraging that at all. We probably do need a lot more citizen action. But the problem I see is that they aren't addressing the real drug problems in Utah. Utah leads the nation in drug abuse, and not illegal drug abuse. They've got thousands, tens of thousands of people on the Utah roads who are legally prescribed medications and are out there driving, and wrecking and killing people and overdosing and dying, and, all these medical side effects that are coming with it. And, alcohol is a major problem, way more than these illicit drugs that they're supposedly fighting. They mentioned heroin. That's the only thing they really mentioned as a problem. The problem is that heroin only constitutes to about 1 to 2% of their whole population, and alcohol is like 20%. Prescription drugs are like 20%, and they're focusing on something that constitutes between 1 and 2% of their population and spending all this money on it. And when they say heroin, why don't they say opiates? Why don't they say, hey, we're fighting legal and illegal drug use. We're fighting, people running over kids in the sidewalks, and I don't understand why they're not spending more time with that. They spend a lot of time on marijuana. They even arrested me in June for protesting without a permit. That was my charge on my ticket, and disorderly conduct, even though there was no complaints, there's no police reports filed, there's no victims, there's no witnesses. And I had a witness saying that I was completely peaceful, and yet they got me with this charge. Instead of, having to fight this, they gave me a plea deal. If I plead, they just charge me a $140 fine, and I could walk merrily on my way. But the opposite of that, if I would have fought it, I would have continued to pay lawyers. I'd already paid a whole bunch in lawyer fees, and, it would have cost me $5,000 to fight this, and probably lose, and probably have to take it to the next level and the next level, but that's how they operate. And that's
The thing I've heard about the drug abuse in Springville is that Springville's the drug capital of Utah.
I've just heard that heroin is the big thing here in Springville.
The perception in Springville has been a long-going thing that the drug and alcohol use is higher than other communities.
I heard somebody one time make the comment that Springville had one of the worst drug problems in the country.
That took me back. I was pretty shocked,
We don't live in a Leave It to Beaver world anymore. There are people who think that there are no drugs here, and that's just not so. There are other people who think that drugs here are horrible and they're worse than anywhere else in the country. That's also not true.
Springville is not higher than the state, and at the same time they are lower in many areas than the rest of the county. They do have areas they can work on like any community.
We work closely with the schools in prevention. We have officers for years have worked in the schools. We go out and we actively pursue drug dealers. One of the things that we did here is we put together a book. We took the people that we knew were using drugs and dealing drugs, and we put their name and their address, the car they drove, we took their pictures in there. The word got out, and a lot of these people who were dealing drugs were worried that their name might be in the book. And they didn't want to come to Springville, they didn't want to be pulled over in Springville because they were worried that we'd know exactly what drugs they used, what car they were, who they were, and all that. We empower our young officers to go out and get after it, to get out there and develop the information and to get search warrants. We take a no-nonsense, zero-tolerance sort of an attitude.
Overall, compared to the state, Springville High and Springville Junior High are much lower than the state averages, and the survey proves that with statistics.
In looking specifically at Springville 12th graders, we found the incidence use of illegal drugs was lower in every category.
Springville today is a better place because we have such close working relationships with groups like Nebo School District, with PTAs, and with the youth programs and with the various neighborhoods and neighborhood watch groups, we are a much better place today because of those things.
Springville's been more proactive, and that is because of the City Council getting involved, that's because of the citizens getting involved, and that's because of YouthNet getting involved.
I would say that Springville is one of the safest cities that you can live in.
I've lived in several different places, and this is by far my favorite.
I'm thrilled that I moved here with my kids, and my grandchildren live here now.
Springville's a wonderful place to raise a family. We've got 2 teenage kids, a 6-year-old daughter also, and we enjoy Springville, feel very safe in the community.
I worked in California for a number of years, and then I chose to bring my family to Springville. And the reason I did that is because of the quality of life here is so much better.
We have these private prisons that have now hired lobbyists to go get minimum mandatories and new laws.
In the spring of 2002, 5 current and former ranking police officers got together to talk about the war on drugs and its impact on their fellow officers. Over the next 3 years, this group of 5 swelled to 500, as current and former DEA agents, police chiefs, judges, and prosecutors joined their ranks. Now they've gone public, and what they're saying is shaking the drug war establishment to its roots.
I think one of the things that I need to confront with respect to my own behavior is that even though for many years I have believed that this drug war is not just nonsense but harmful financially and psychically and spiritually, it's just an immoral proposition. I should have been saying much more of that, much more strenuously. When I was a police officer in 1966, I used to enjoy kicking in doors and going after, a half a baggie of marijuana or a seed, even for that matter. It was a felony. We were told in the academy that was a big pinch. It was really important to collect those numbers, and I did it. I did it with zeal. I did it with a lot of vigor. But after about 14 months on the job, having had a principal prosecutor slapped me upside the head and questioned my understanding of the Constitution, I began to understand that the 17 or the 19-year-old kid I had in the backseat of my police car was not a criminal at all.
Under Prohibition, we have given the right to the criminal of who's going to supply the drugs to the United States, what kind of drugs are going to be supplied, how much those drugs are going to cost, how they're going to be produced, how potent they're going to be, what age levels they're going to sell to, and where they're going to sell. And if they decide they're going to sell to 10-year-old kids on our playgrounds, by God, that's where they'll be sold.
The thing that gets me is we don't learn a thing from history. We want our institutions to be pure and not corrupt, but yet we do the things that we know is going to corrupt.
It's a group that was created to give voice to all the current and former members of law enforcement who feel the war on drugs is not only a dismal failure, but it's a terribly destructive policy.
I remember just going in, taking a small area of my community and for all practical purposes cordoning it off, completely cleaning it up, using some pretty sophisticated techniques, trampling all over the edges of the Constitution to do so. But I mean really cleaning it up and getting all of the dope dealers out of there. And to my dismay, 90 days later, I had a Haitian group to move in from downstate. I had the Miami boys to move in from Jacksonville, and they were shooting machine guns and beating people mercilessly, and I wanted my old dope dealers back.
We didn't have an illegal drug in this country until 1914, when we passed the Harrison Anti-Drug Act. Just before 1914, the government said, we have 1.3% of the people in this country addicted to drugs. God, we can't have that, right? So they passed this law. Now you fast forward 56 years to 1970, the beginning of the war on drugs. In 1970, the government said 1.3% of the population is addicted to drugs. Can't have it. Got to start a war on drugs. 36 years later and $1 trillion and all these lives lost, 1.3% of the population is addicted to drugs.
I think the drug war has been arguably the single most devastating, dysfunctional, harmful social policy since slavery. I think it has devastated our communities. I think it has ruined the lives of so many of our fellow citizens. I believe that it has cost the national, the state, and the local treasury obscene amounts of money, and for what?